Welcome to our meditation time for today. Let's just each, in our own way, settle in. Maybe that means that you close your eyes. Maybe it means that you lengthen out the body if you're lying down, or you just find some relaxation in the muscles that felt a little tight. But whatever your ritual is to settle, just allow yourself to do that. Find comfort. Find ease. And maybe you'll find just a little bit of separation from the noise and the busyness of the day and of the season. And just notice what it feels like to give yourself permission to just settle. What a beautiful thing, this giving permission. Someday maybe we'll get into where that's just our default way of being. We just find ease and stillness. But right now we continue to practice it, giving ourselves permission, grounding, breathing, and moving a little further away from the noise and the distractions. And so today, this day before the winter solstice, we've been sitting with all the different ways that challenges manifest themselves in our lives over the last few times we've been together. And I think it is such beautiful timing that tomorrow will be the shortest day of the year, the day that has more darkness than light. And that here today, the day before, maybe our challenge that we sit with is the darkness that seems to exist in each of our lives. I wish I could say that we show up to meditation and then as we rise, we go out into this beautiful light-filled life and the darkness just begins to disappear. But we know the reality is that there are situations, there are heartbreaks, there are sufferings that just feel really heavy and really dark. And so tomorrow, as I think about leading folks through this winter solstice, we're going to embrace the dark, but we're going to seek the light because we know on the other side, the days start getting a little longer. But today, this day before the solstice, I'd like us to challenge ourselves to embrace the darkness. And so the way that I'd like us to do this is we have these things, this Sanskrit word that's called samskaras. I always describe them as these thumbprints on our brain, these experiences that have just left their mark on us. And they're not all negative and they're not all traumatic, but they are impressions that form habits in how we act. They are impressions that put a lens over how we see the world. They're impressions that maybe cause us not to trust, sometimes even maybe not to love. They're impressions that sometimes make us get stuck. We feel like we can't move forward. We can't take the next step. And oftentimes we don't even realize that these impressions are being made until we're feeling their impact later on. There's nothing wrong with us that these samskaras exist. There's nothing wrong with us that our stories all have challenges and tough times. But it's what we do beyond and in spite of these things. However, what I have learned in my own practice, what so many of the great teachers tell us again and again, is you don't run away from these things. You don't block them out. The way to heal is through. The way to heal is to understand the wound. The way to heal is to embrace. And so what I'd like for us to do is, in this idea of embracing the darkness as this solstice day is just coming tomorrow, I would challenge each of us to think of something about ourselves that we don't really advertise to the world. Maybe it's something about ourselves that we don't like. Maybe for others, there's something that we feel shame about. Maybe there's something that we try to hide or we try to avoid letting it come up in conversations. But we all have, in these samskaras, these thumbprints in our mind, we all have these dark corners. That just like the dark corners in your house, they tend to get forgotten until they're not. And so what I'd like us to do is to stop forgetting all the parts of us. To know, to have this beautiful, acute awareness that I've experienced that, or I went through that, or I did that. And rather than feeling shame or avoidance or guilt or sadness, what if we embrace it? What if we understand that it is just a page in the story? We don't tear that page out because then the story would be incomplete. But we also don't keep going back in the book to that page and getting stuck. If you think about the metaphor, you keep turning the page and you keep going on. And so for us, the only way to do that, and what this practice really teaches, is we embrace it. I know I quote and go back to the great teacher Thich Nhat Hanh so many times, but I love the way he phrased it when he talks about the darkness and he talks about the suffering. He says, invite them to your practice and ask them to sit right next to you. So just imagine this spot where you are. You're on this cushion, you're in this chair, you're on the ground, you're in the bed. What if that part of yourself that you hide from the world, that you try to press down and you try to forget, that personality trait, that quirk, that habit, that mindset, that action, whatever it is, what if for these few moments of quiet that we have right now today, we invite that thing to sit right next to us. We embrace the darkness. And I can tell you, just as I say the words, even though I believe them and I have practiced them, even here, I feel my heart start to beat a little more strongly. I notice my breath a little more because it's hard. We want the world to think that we have it all together. We want the world to think that we've been through these things, and not only have we survived, but we are so strong and so resilient, and those things never bother us again. But for most of us, quite the opposite is true. When the door closes on our home or on our bedroom or wherever it is that you go, and it's just you with your thoughts, your samskaras, your impressions and thumbprints, we remember those things. And if we haven't invited them, they tend to show up in ways that take us by surprise, that feel almost paralyzing for some, and that remind us of these things that already caused hurt, already caused suffering, but we let it happen again. So again, these great teachers tell us the way through is through. And so just for these next few breaths, what I'd like us to each do, we don't do this often, but cannot think of a more beautiful time than the night before the solstice. I'd like us each to think of one thing, not a list. One thing, one part of us, one page in our story that we hide from the world, that we suffer through all by ourselves, that we keep replaying a tape of in our head again and again. Just pick one thing as you breathe in and you breathe out. And then just imagine yourself, and for me, I'm actually going to do it, but imagine yourself just taking one of your hands and just kind of touching that spot on the chair, on the ground, or wherever you are right next to you. And I'm actually touching the side of my cushion. And just imagine that you're inviting that thing just to sit right there next to you. That part that you don't let the world see. That dark corner that you do a really good job hiding and avoiding. See it sitting right there next to you. Almost like it's got human form and you look it right in the eye. See that page in your story. Recognize it on your terms, in your space, in your practice right now. And as you do that, continue to breathe slow, steady breaths in and slow, gentle breaths out. And as we sit for these next just few minutes of quiet, I'm not going to let it just be totally quiet. I'm going to give us a mantra in English that I'll just say, just quietly whisper it across the airwaves. Because sometimes sitting with this thing is hard enough, and to do it in complete silence is a lot. So I just want to encourage us, and all I'm going to say, just again and again and again, embrace the darkness. And I'll just repeat that as you see, as you visualize, as you sit with this thing. But before we go through this part of our practice, I want to encourage us. We oftentimes think that light and darkness are these opposite, these dual forces in the world, in our heart, in our life. But really and truly, the more you study, the more you begin to embrace this practice, the more you begin to understand is that they are one and the same. One can't exist without the other. There would be no darkness if there were not light. There would be no light if there were not darkness. And instead of seeing them as these dual competing forces, see them as unified. That's the encouraging part of it. We don't have to separate out the darkness and forget about it. We embrace it the same way we embrace the light because they are the same. So as you continue to breathe, just let my words just gently fill the space as you sit with that thing, that memory, that samskara. Embrace the darkness. 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 I would invite you just to notice how you physically feel right here in this moment. Notice your jaw. Notice that space right there at the center of your heart. Notice your temples, your forehead, the back of your neck, your belly. And just see if there's any discomfort, if there's any tension that was created as you were sitting with that thing, that memory, that thumbprint. I wish I could tell you that just this simple little practice will just make that one thing become less powerful in your life. But this is a practice. And I would encourage you that rather than letting these things creep up and take you by surprise, in the days to come as we look to end this calendar year, invite that thing again. Sit out in nature, look up at the blue sky, breathe in, and invite this memory to sit there with you. Sit on your cushion with the lights low and soft. And as you breathe slow and deep, invite this impression, this part of your story to sit there with you again and again and again. I think about for those of us that have been parents or grandparents, those first times that your kid sleeps by themselves in their room and they're big enough to talk. And somewhere in their little psyche, they've discovered that there's something in that dark room to be afraid of. But as parents, we take them in the room, we lift up the bed covers and look under the bed and show them that there's nothing there to be afraid of. We open the closet door. We show them there's nothing there. We shine a light into the dark corners. And we do all that we can to ease their little spirits so they can rest. And I've never heard one of the great teachers tell us this, but I would say that that's what this practice is. We embrace the darkness. We look under the bed and we see there really is nothing there. Our mind has convinced us that this thing is persisting, and we believe it. And in this practice, it's like we open the closet door and we check. And we realize nothing's there. But something in our mind has convinced us that it still has power over us. And we believe it. And walk over to the corner of the room and we shine the flashlight or the lamp and we realize there's nothing there. But again, our mind has convinced us that we have to keep paying for this thing again and again. And we believe that to be true. But the key to this practice is we keep showing up and we keep looking under the bed and in the closet and the corners, and then little by little, we start to believe something different. We start to understand that that page in that story is done, and that we can embrace dark and light together and live the most vibrant, whole life And again, I know that this won't happen after just one time of embracing. But tomorrow as the solstice comes, just remind yourself again. And the day after that. And after that, until you're ready to turn that calendar page and embrace a new year, remind yourself again. We were meant to live in this beautiful present moment. Let's not let the patterns of the past, of what the darkness has told us to be true, keep us from embracing this present moment. One breath in, one breath out. We embrace the darkness. Namaste.